This is Claire Williams, who's very kindly come along to talk to us. She is Health, Safety and Environment Manager.
That's right.
That's her title. And her title of talk is Health, Safety and Environment, Nature or Nurture, My Journey in Building Safer Workplaces. So
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's a real pleasure. Thank you for asking. I have to say, when I was asked back in the summer, it seemed like a long time until we got to October, and then it was here. It's like, where has that time disappeared to? But my first experience of Merched Wawr was with my grandmother, as I mentioned. There's a book going around, but these are some of the slides of her out of there. I didn't realise she was dressed as Ben for one of the Bill and Ben sketches. The most famous one we remember was her being Michelle in Hello Hello, and we had that, I think, all summer, the lines for that, while she practiced her Hello Hello. But yeah, so I brought the book, and please feel free to have a look through as we're going. Very informal. If you want to ask any questions at any point, then please do. I'm more than open to stopping the presentation and going through it. So who am I? As you said, Claire Williams, Health and Safety Manager at Aberystwyth Uni. I've been there since about 2017, and before that I was based down in South Wales working for local authorities. So I worked for Swansea Council, Bridgend Council, and what was Gwalior Group, which is now known as Pobl, a housing association. So I've got quite a sort of a range of experience, if you like, within the HS&E industry sector. I first began my career though in Unigate Dairies. I started as a lab technician testing all the milk, and I quickly moved into, would have been about the early 1990s. The European legislation came out, and there was what we called a six-pack of regulations coming through from Europe, and the organisation I was working for, Unigate, decided that they were going to implement it. This was around the same time as I was expecting, and being a female working in a Unigate factory, they weren't quite sure what to do with me, but they didn't think it was right for me to be on the dispatch bay anymore, so they gave me risk assessments to do instead. And that's where my health and safety career started, was looking at all the risk assessments and how we implemented those 6 regulations that were coming in. So it was a really interesting experience, but when I look back on it, it was funny to see how naive I think I was at the time. So I looked at the regulations, well, the regulations say we must do this, and therefore that's what organisations do. Unfortunately, it's not necessarily as simple as that for some. So that's where my nature and nurture comes from, I suppose, is how do we influence people to make those changes? Because it's not just about the legislation. In fact, it's probably one of my pet hates now. I hate somebody saying, well, the Health and Safety at Work Act says this, or the management regs say that, because that doesn't always help our cause. It doesn't always help our story of what we're trying to achieve. But I'm also a daughter, a sister, a mother, an auntie, a wife, and for any, I think, working woman in today's world, we wear many hats, and it's always a juggle trying to mix that life balance, work-life balance. My mother was a housewife until I was about a teenager. And then she decided that she was going to have a career, and she went back to work, went back to college, and gained qualifications and started working for a local authority. And I think from me seeing my mother strive to change her career sort of midway through her life made me realise that, well, actually I can change my career as well. And I went back to do my health and safety qualifications when I was about 35, and I can remember my children sitting at the side of the swimming pool while they were in the swimming pool enjoying themselves, while I was busy scribbling doing my exams at the side of the pool through the summer holidays. My mother and I often talk about the generational growth and how we see the difference between her generation and what was expected of her, I suppose, to stay at home and look after the children. And how my children, her grandchildren now, who are just coming up to their 30s, are far more adapt to being to university, have my career, and I might think about children in a few years' time. But it is very much, I can have it all. I think there's some challenges around that. I think that sets women up with a lot of expectations about being able to achieve and have everything, and making sure that that balance is right is a bit of a challenge. But the children, my mother and I sometimes talk about how we see the growth in the children and how far more knowledgeable they are about life and about people and how we integrate with each other, and how we work together. They are far more experienced in that than we ever were at their ages. So just watching that growth along the life cycle is absolutely fabulous. But a bit of background about me, I suppose. But what is health and safety? I tried to find some of the pictures from the university because we do have a huge range of things in the university. We've got the farm down in Trawscoed, which is one of our biggest sources of hazards, if you like. But we also have a range of laboratories and workshops. We've got a robotic club that meet, and we build robots for various parts of our computer science departments. And most recently, I think we have assisted on putting a camera through NASA on Mars. So we've actually got a replicant sort of laboratory in Mars where they've been practicing to move the rover through the sand that they expect to have in Mars. So it's a very exciting field in terms of the university because it's a big range. But health and safety, it cuts across so many different aspects of work. When I worked in local authorities, in Bridgend particularly, part of our responsibilities was the M4 between Talbot and Cardiff. So we had staff who were working on there and looking at some of their risk assessments for night working on a motorway, travelling at 70 miles an hour, and how they close roads down was really interesting. One of the best things for me is health and safety. You're never the expert in the room. You've always got other people who do the job, who are the experts. What we have the benefit of doing as health and safety is having fresh eyes, looking at what they do, and perhaps being able to offer some advice, being able to take a step back out of it. A lot of our researchers, as you would imagine, are very passionate about their topics and what they want to deliver. And sometimes that can, of course, make us not think about safety in a different way. And no different, I suppose, to us rushing to go and get to an appointment and needing to drive that little bit faster to get there, or something along those lines. So that's what I sort of really enjoy about the role, is that influencing people and asking them to sort of reflect a bit on what they've got compared to how we sort of interpret the standards to be. And our main approach is to make sure everybody goes home safe. Nobody goes home with an injury. So one of the first things I do every morning when I get in, I have to start with a cup of tea. I cannot, and the team, we're a sort of a team of 6 in the health and safety team, and we've got some sustainability in there as well. And they know I cannot function without a cup of tea in the morning. So that's generally the first thing I get up to. And then I'll check my emails, have a look at some of the incidents that have come in overnight to see if there's anything urgent that needs our attention. And if not, I sort of move then to what's my work plan for the day, and that might be reviewing the health and safety policy. It might be looking at some guidance on biological standards, or it might be preparing for an audit. Or I think, what was the last thing I did today? I just emailed the health, safety and executive. They're coming in to do an audit of our labs in January, and I just emailed him and said, yes, I'm free tomorrow at 12 if you're free to have a quick chat. So there's lots of different aspects to what we do, which makes it really interesting. No 2 days are the same. It's very, very interesting role to get involved in. I love working with people, which I think is helpful because if you're not a people person in this job, it can be challenging. And we do have lots of colleagues across Wales. So as universities, there are 8 universities in Wales, and we will often link together to check what each other are doing and whether there's some best practice that we can learn from each other, which is helpful. I think one of the main things in health and safety is recognising that not everything's going to go to plan. It's not going to be perfect, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But we look about how do we learn? What didn't go well? And then what are the things that we can do for next time? And that's particularly for events, because they can change depending on the amount of numbers that you have coming to visit, or perhaps the type of visit that it is. So that's really interesting. When you look at those events, you plan for it and then think, well, what worked, what didn't work, what are we going to change for next time? We have some large events at the university. Graduation week is probably one of the biggest. It's a very busy week. I think it's 9 ceremonies last summer that they do in sort of 3 days. So it's a big roller coaster of people coming on site, people having fun, and then people leaving site.
Whoosh. Gosh.
Yes. So I think about 1,200, generally 1,200 students, and then their families watching in the audience on each ceremony. So, and of course we have the art centre there as well, which is a lovely resource, and they hold a host of different events. Ceramic festival is always an interesting one.
The raku firing.
Yes, that the fire safety officer.
Yeah.
The fire safety advisor does have a little bit of nerves whenever they're prepping that, and he likes to go up to make sure that they're all okay in terms of their plans. But yes, built on our chapel court normally, which is so it's good fun.
Could I ask a question, please?
Of course you can.
You started with this career path here in university in 2017, and you referred to European legislation. Have you seen a change since we left Europe? Have standards remained? Have they improved or declined?
I think in my opinion, I think they've stayed fairly stable. So what happened when through Brexit was the government adopted the European regulations, so those just transferred across to be UK regulations, so they still stand. I don't think we've necessarily seen a decline, but I'm not sure we're seeing progression either. I think we're fairly stable, and given the financial climate in a lot of industries at the moment, I think we could see a decline coming our way. The UK is one of the strongest safety records in the world, which is something to be really proud of. But we also, there was also 138 people that didn't go home from work in 23-24, that was. And there are lots of figures in terms of people not being well or being injured at work as well. So we've still got a long way to go. Lots of those industries were agriculture and construction and forestry, which of course is very prominent in the Ceredigion area. So there's still room for improvement there, I think, but it doesn't seem to be high on the agenda for many of our political parties, and I understand it is difficult with the competing nature that they have for funds with social care, healthcare, and other things. But
because it has a cost implication.
It does have a cost implication,
Health and safety measures.
Also, people don't think about it.
No.
Nobody thinks about health and safety. It's sort of something that goes on in the background.
Oh.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yes, it is. It's an add-on as opposed to just things that we do every day.
People they don't think about it until something happens, and then suddenly it's the risk assessments and
Yeah.
And the blame game.
Yeah, which is the sad side of it really, because that's not what we're about. It's about trying to prevent, to make sure that people don't get in. And you're never going to be able to stop it all. There will always be reasons that things happen. But I think making a reasonable effort to try and prevent things happening in the first instance is the best way. I've asked myself several times through my career so far, did I choose my career or did my career choose me? There are some traits within the career that I think sit quite nicely with my personality. I'm quite logical, I'm quite methodical, and I have a bit of a passion, I suppose, for justice, the right thing to do. I'm also a netball umpire, and I really enjoy the rule side of that and making sure that people understand that I'm just there to make sure that you're safe on the court and enforce the rules. I don't do anything else. But that's a side of me that I think is quite natural. So it makes me wonder then, well, which way round happened? Did I just fall into the career, or actually was it just my personality pushing me down that road? Risk perception is really interesting. So through my career I've met different people who have very different levels of risk. You'll have people who are very sensitive to danger and caution and be quite risk adverse. They don't want to take any risks. And then you'll have others who are complete risk takers and not think anything about the risk, and I'm just doing this. And for me as an advisor, is trying to move between the both and move into the middle ground somewhere, at least in the workplace.
Difficult, very. I'd say that was pretty challenging.
It is challenging, and you know, I take risks. You know, for example, I've had fireworks at home, and we've had some disasters with my brother doing the fireworks, but you know, we've got there. You know, I do road cycling, so I'm often on the roads. I see that as an increasing hazard, but I do the best that I can do to keep myself safe. So I have lights, I make sure my bike's in good working order, I make sure that I'm quite vigilant when I'm on the road. I did have a situation where I was coming down a road in Llanafan and a car decided to overtake a bus, and I think I had about a foot between me, the car and the bus, and I was looking at the hedge going, I'm going in there if I can't squeeze through here. And it's those kinds of situations that make you think, well, did I do enough? And I think I did. I was cycling on the right side of the road, I was completely visible, there was no reason why the driver couldn't have seen me, apart from when they did come close and we were eye to eye contact, and then he sort of realised I shouldn't have overtaken. No, you shouldn't have, ideally. But we both got past that. You know, none of us got any harm. Nobody was injured, which is good. And hopefully that's a bit of a lesson learned for that driver, where they'll think next time about, well,
Think bike.
yeah.
We always found it very interesting. I used to work in the care industry some years ago, and it was balancing the risk of, I remember one particular situation, there's a person with, what's their condition now? Oh, I can't remember. Was it learning difficulties maybe? But they wanted to go swimming, and you don't want to take that ability away from him to go swimming, but then you've got to send him, it was a man, in a pool with a female,
Yeah.
in this, you know, and it was looking at all of the risks associated with that, and we got him in the pool.
Wow.
We got there.
Yeah.
There was lots of things. There was a disabled swim on, for example, and things like that you could look at, and who did he get on better with, and
Yeah.
you know, we went and checked it out and looked at the area first so we could identify any hazards, things
That's
like that. But it was a job.
Mm.
Word.
Yeah, the complex cases usually are, but it's, you know, time to take that good planning helped to achieve a successful event.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key. And sometimes in today's society we don't have time. We don't have time to plan. We don't have time to sort of measure, I suppose, where we want to go to in the workplace because everybody's running at 100 miles an hour. I remember I married about, I should get this right, 10 years ago. I can remember my husband saying to me, he came into the house once and I think I was balancing on a stool in the kitchen as we were trying to reach something for the top shelf, and he said to me, I thought you were a health and safety manager. How on earth are you balancing on a stool trying to get? I said, well, I can't reach it, can I? And I need to reach it. Since then we've got a little step up that I can use, which is fine. But we all do things that perhaps aren't the most safety, you know, the most safest thing that we can do. But I try to be, I suppose, the best person that I can be. I think it's probably easier to work with somebody who's at risk adverse than it is with a risk taker sometimes, because I think from a risk adverse they're more likely to perhaps listen and move slightly across that line, whereas like sometimes with a risk taker it can be harder to influence them. And I've got no reason why. Perhaps I should check with my psychology colleagues who may know more around that.
Isn't it that they're not bothered about the risk because they don't see the risk? So you can't. It's like dealing with a teenager. They just can't see it. It's not that they don't want it, they just can't.
I'm